All right, we are live for another episode of Real Estate Junkies Podcast as we sit down with Colton Lindsay, an
What's
internationally
up?
recognized real estate sales speaker. Colton, you there?
Yep, I'm here. Can you hear me?
All right. Yep, we can hear you. Yep. So join us live today with Colton. He's an internationally recognized real estate sales speaker, trainer, and a mastermind facilitator. In this interview, we will explore how real estate agents can pivot from being business operators to becoming business owners, achieving financial freedom, and enjoying life to the fullest. Colton will share his journey from launching the WGR over 15 years ago, becoming a top agent, and building one of the North America's premier real estate business academies. You will be able to discover the strategies that helped him and thousands of agents transform their careers and income potentials. So you don't want to miss out on this opportunity to learn from one of the best in the industry and how to make money without working around the clock. So tune in live with us, Colton. It's a pleasure having you finally, and welcome to the podcast, bro.
Yeah, hey, thanks for having me here. I appreciate the opportunity to jam for a little bit.
Yeah, for sure, man. Tell us a little bit about your background. Like, how'd you get started in real estate, and what was that journey like for you?
It was rough to be honest. So I got in business in the end of 2005, clear before the Great Recession. Interest rates were about 7%. Homes were definitely more affordable, but everything was more affordable back then. And even in hot market, everything was selling back then. It was stated income loans. I didn't understand how to generate leads. So that first year, I only sold two houses, and I just kind of got lucky because one was my sister and one was back then. There's a thing I don't know if you heard. It's called floor time. So we just sit at the office, and a lead walked in, and that's how I did one of my deals. And then about the end of that first year, I went to like a 3 hour training. I went to this, drove like 2 hours away to go to it because I wanted to learn how to do better. And I signed up for this guy's coaching program. And that next year, I just followed it. And I sold like 20 something homes, which was a big deal for me. I was 21, 22 at the time. So it was a lot
Oh,
for me. Um, and then from there, I just kept growing. What I realized that first year is I didn't have a system to follow. I didn't have a repeatable pattern to follow that
mm,
gave me results.
yeah.
So then I started figuring that out within a few years, 4 years, something like that. I was doing 75 homes a year, and which was great. But then what I learned is the system I was using to get there was now burning me out. I got in to make a lot of money and have free time, but I was making good money, but I wasn't free, right? Like I was working all the freaking time. So then a little bit later, I built the traditional real estate team, thinking that that's how I would exit, which I just realized that was a lot of headache, a lot of expenses, and it wasn't really for me. So then I had another great idea, and I built an independent brokerage, built that to 50 something agents, and realized that was even more headache than I wanted. By 20, and we were still selling my homes. But what I was learning is that I wasn't creating freedom, right?
Mm,
Like I was generating revenue, but then in order to keep the revenue going, I was spending a ton of money. My profit margins were low, and I was just putting myself more into the operations.
yeah.
So then 2018, well, actually 2014, in this 2014, 2018, I started making money online by accident because I put up YouTube videos of me prospecting online, and agents started reaching out saying, hey, how could I do that? And so 2014 was a cool year for online, which I wasn't really focused on, but I made 100 grand that year online, which was nuts
Wow.
for me, right? Like, and but my mind was still thinking, oh, I got to build a team, I got to build a brokerage, right? So then by 2018, I realized, wait a second, there's something with this online thing. So I went full bore with my online academy in 2018, and that year I made like 400 grand um, from my training academy, and that was the fastest I'd ever made to 400 grand in anything. And so I kept going. By 2020, I was doing $1 million a year. 2021, I partnered with Real Brokerage, and here we are, 2024, multiple seven figures. My rev share is over $1 million a year. My academy is over $1 million a year, and yeah, so that's me in a nutshell. So I help agents pivot out of that traditional method and move into these newer models, whether it's building a national real estate team, which is very popular, or it's becoming even more popular, or growing revenue share, which is obviously very exciting for those that are involved with that. And then also people that want to sell their expertise, right? Like that want to create their own products and
Yeah.
sell those to
Mm,
real estate agents. And so that's what I do in a nutshell. I just have created a way that I have freedom, right? I make 6 figures or more, even if I don't work now. And that's cool. And so I want to help other agents do that.
Yeah, so sounds like to me you grew the traditional way, right? Grew your way out of the production yourself, and then started that traditional way of leveraging other people and other people's time to be able to generate business, and then grew your way out of that into traditional brokerage model, and got to where you are. So can you walk us through the initial steps you had to go through to that that took you to establish the WGR, and what foundational decisions were critical in setting it up for success?
Well, the first is I had to learn how to operate the business myself. So it was important to be an operator at one stage.
Yeah.
And I would say the biggest, most important skill that I learned was the sales skill, communication skill. How do I communicate with an individual to find the yes and the no and convert them to money? Like that was huge. Influence and persuasion is really the foundation of my career. First with just face to face and on the phone and converting. Then with time, really moving it to the marketing side. I always ask people, what business are you in? And they'll tell me in the real estate business. I was like, you're in the wrong fucking business. You got to be in the marketing business, right? Because the person or the individual that can control the lead flow, that's who controls the business. Yeah. So with time, I figured out how to take that same level of influence into marketing from social media, right? And not just generating views online, right? Because I'd started generating 5 million views on my videos, but no leads, right? It was pointless. I was creating views with no leads. Now I can generate 25,000, 100,000 views, but I can create 50, 60 leads a week from that as well. And so it's really about generating leads is the name of the game.
Yeah, I think it's an influence business, right? Yes, marketing. Well, marketing for what? To create influence, right? Because how do you know your marketing is working? Is if people are taking action, right? If people are coming into your database as leads, right? 5 million, like you mentioned, 5 million views doesn't mean anything if it's not being deposited into your bank account, right? So we have to take it as like, hey, we are in an influence business, right? And I get a lot of agents, they talk about, oh, I don't want to recruit, or the new way of generating business or income in real estate, the recruiting model, right? Like, oh, I don't want to recruit. Like, well, you are in a recruiting business, right? Whether it is buyers or sellers, you are out there trying to recruit buyers or sellers. Might as well master the principle of persuasion, the principles of
you have to.
Yeah.
Well, and if you look too, so like even those videos that got over 1 million views, they weren't directed at my right fit client either. So I'd get followers from people that I was never going to do any business with. It was just pointless. Whereas now, I've really figured out, how do I focus on real estate agents specifically?
Yeah.
Meaning those are I don't get a ton of new followers, maybe 2,500 to 3,000 per month, which is still good. New followers.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's not what I'd like to be, right? So I guess I'm judging myself on what I'd like to be. But yeah, they're real estate followers. And that's what's important, is the riches are in the niches. And I've chosen the real estate niche because I got a 20-year career now in this industry. And I can add a ton of value to real estate agents, specifically residential realtors, that they got into business for two things. One, they wanted to make way more money. And two, they wanted way more freedom.
Yeah.
And so it's learning how that works. It's learning, how do you get in front of them and serve them. And you mentioned something I think it's interesting. The new, I don't remember what you called it, but I call it the new models of real estate, the future of real estate.
Yeah.
And what happened in COVID really accelerated is the traditional models are just, they went through this midlife crisis. The industry's gone through a crisis. And those traditional models, they head to the assisted living. And that's really where they're at. They're in a nursing home right now. And the next step after that
is being institutionalized, right? Yeah.
They're being institutionalized right now, and they're going to be heading out of that into what happens is their deathbed, unless they can innovate, right? And many companies have innovated. Not all of them are working out exactly how they had hoped. But those that are not, like they're toast. Like if you look at the traditional team model, the margins are no longer there. And these agents that want to have a team, that's great. You got to evolve. You got to innovate. Yeah. The original millionaire real estate agent book from Gary was great for that 20-year stretch, but that's gone now. What's working is different now. The independent brokerage are getting fucking toast right now. They can't keep up technologically with these real estate tech firms. I mean, we were talking before we went live, like one of the biggest things that even top producing agents struggle with is the technology and piecing them together. An independent brokerage now not only needs to do it for themselves, but for an entire company. I'm not saying it can't happen, but for most of the time it ain't gonna happen. And then the third, which is just so obsolete, and it'll be interesting to see how they end their institutionalization era, which is the franchise models. I think one of the biggest you look at is Anywhere Real Estates, C21, Better Homes and Garden, Coldwell Banker, ERA. I don't see how they survive, quite honestly. If as a real estate agent, if I'm a real estate agent, why would I want to pay 6, 7, 8% on every deal? Like we've talked to some of these agents that are leaving now that they do $3 million a year in commissions and they're paying $300,000 in fees to their company just on the franchise fees. That's just the franchise.
Just for wearing that balloon.
Right. And at some level, agents, and you're seeing it right now, they're saying, okay, well, where is the better opportunity? And I think here's the biggest discovery that brokerages need to understand is they need agents more than agents need them today. Like it's the fact. I think an agent can come on and listen to this podcast, or they got tons of different things. They have so many resources today that they don't need that brokerage. And so if you look at a model like Anywhere, it's like, okay, well, they need that 6, 7, 8% to actually have capital to operate their business. However, when we look at that, like what happens when agents stop using it and they got no capital anymore, they got no way to make money. They can't pivot fast enough. They're too big to pivot. So I personally think you're going to see a day that those you're going to see mergers and acquisitions from the older models into the newer models that can then fit the transactions into that. Because really there's a brand name in the future of real estate for brokerages is technology, it's financial tech, and it's absorbing transactions. That's the future for big firms.
Yeah, I think when it comes to scaling a franchise model, just scalability is not just there anymore because we are in a global economy now, right? Like you got to think way beyond your local market, right? Like if you're still thinking local,
way beyond
as a brokerage, you're literally shrinking over time. Like every second on the clock is shrinking you, right? You're fighting against the clock. And something you mentioned, I came across before I joined EXP myself. About 2.5 years ago, I was in Tony Robbins' Business Mastery, and he went through the business cycle, right? And he went through the institutionalizing or institutionalization of any industry, right? Like he goes through the whole growth and the toddler phase and the infancy and all of that. And when he got there, I was like, this is real estate. Like this is what's happening in the real estate business. And he went through like, if your business industry is in this stage, this is what you do. And he talked about if your business industry is in this stage, you merge, right? You don't recreate. You gotta go find who's doing it the best and merge with them, right? And the next day I pulled the trigger on EXP. I was like, that's it. I'm not gonna recreate the wheel. I was in the process of recreating the whole. My vision was I want a global brokerage. I want a tech-based brokerage. But then I thought about it like, hey, these companies have done it for years ahead of me. Why am I trying to recreate the wheel in an industry? Maybe if an industry is in infancy or in a toddler phase, right, on a teenage phase, you could probably recreate the wheel and actually scale, right? But not where it is now. I want to go back. Your journey because I feel like we brushed over it a little bit. There's a lot of gems that we could take out of your experience, right? So what were some of the biggest challenges, right, you face when it comes to scaling your real estate business, and how did you overcome them, or how did you pivot from those challenges?
I think the biggest challenges for me was my own psychological, emotional state management. Because as you're going through, just like the industry has those phases, we as business operators have those phases as our own business. And so we're learning new things. And we also have these outside things that are affecting us, whether that's family, our own emotional stuff we still have sorted out in life. Parents are aging, children are, start to have children in your life. So as these things start to, and then Tony talks about this too. I don't know if you remember this. I think he talks about it, Business Mastery, is the 8 triggers of crises.
Yeah.
And
life mastery.
Really in our industry, so we're seeing all of these triggers of crises right now, from government changes, government regulations. I went through the 2007, 2008 Great Recession to 2012. I remember the era of 95% of my deals were short sales, right? Like 9 months to get a deal did. To where then, look at 2020, 2021, where it's like everyone's complaining that there's not enough properties, and we're writing, we're having 20 offers on properties, and, the complete opposite of that. So I've seen all of that. And then through these cycles and phases, you've got the phases of the industry, but you have the phases of your own life. And depending on where you are when the industry is changing and where you're colliding, I think the biggest thing for me to overcome was, how do I manage my psychological, emotional state to stay clear and create certainty so that I could execute regardless of what was in front of me, the unknown, the uncertainty.
Yeah, I think
like here's a good example I want to share. So 2020, remember COVID happened.
Yeah.
And I had my academy going, and I remember people were like, shit, what the fuck's going to happen? And I remember I cleared my schedule because I wanted to figure out, observe what was happening. And I set this meeting with the top brokerage owners and industry leaders in Utah. I went really community based. There's about 20 on there in the whole state. And all we did was have a conversation about what was going on. I was just listening and hearing what they were doing. And I was not trying to tell anyone what to do. I was just observing what made sense. I put it in common sense corner. What didn't, I didn't do it. But the one thing that I did right out of that meeting is I scheduled an emergency webinar. And it was one of the biggest webinars I ever had attended. And I made an offer on that webinar. And all I did was raise my prices 5 times. 5 times higher. I sold the same product. And we sold the shit out of that stuff. Because what I realized, the number one thing everyone wanted during that time frame was absolute fucking certainty they were going to be okay. And that's what we instilled during that time, certainty. And we never looked back since then. We just kept growing even more.
Yeah, that's amazing. And it's a really good point that you bring up, is that real estate agents, they just get so caught up in their business, right? Or in the market, or in the cycles of the market, like, oh, rates are so high, oh, inventory is so low. And they don't take into consideration their own life cycle, right? They don't take into consideration the strengths and weaknesses that comes out of those life phases, right? It gotta be integrated, right? Yes. They don't do that. And that's why a lot of them actually burn out. They give up, right? Or worst case scenario, it would be you be successful, but you hate your business, right? That's what happens because you're not giving enough time to your wife. The wife's always nagging, or you're not giving enough time to your children, and they're turning out to be doing stuff they shouldn't be doing. Now, what are the benefits, I guess, like you can talk about that this business model, your business model, the evolution of your business model from directly handling sales to focusing more on training and masterminds, like what are some of the benefits?
Well, I think the biggest benefit is location freedom and time freedom. I mean, you were talking about these, and I found myself in that trap, is these agents, they're dealing with all these text messages, phone calls, or the other day, last night when we were driving to the Post Malone concert, so much traffic. Yeah. And I was like, oh my God, I would hate to be a listing agent right now. That was my life, right? In traffic. The benefit is I don't ever find myself in traffic, hardly ever, unless I'm going to a concert now. I can make multiple 7 figures from anywhere in the planet. I can be in Canada, I can be Costa Rica, Europe, US, doesn't matter. I can be there. If I want to take a month off, I'll still make $100,000, right? Like, I have that ability. And what really, I think the gift it's given me is the gift of creativity, meaning I can go have an idea that I'm excited about, and I can implement without concern of having to make it work or not. Right. Like, you remember that phase of business where it's like, if I don't fucking make this work, I'm fucked, right? Like, this is going to be a financial problem. Whereas now is like, I did a deal in 2023, which I'm not stoked about. I'm not proud of, but there's a guy named T. Harv Eker, which I really admire him a ton. He wrote a book called Secrets of the Millionaire Mind. I did a deal with him, and we did this event, and the event just fucking flopped, right? Like, I lost $500,000 on that project, and it's not ideal, it's not fun, but it didn't kill me. It didn't cripple me. Whereas when I was a real estate agent, dude, $500,000 would have fucking crippled me. Like, that would have set me back.
3 years.
So I think those are some of the, Yeah, I think those are some of the gifts, some of the benefits that I have is freedom, business freedom. I make money, work when I choose to. I don't have to have the financial freedom because I've reinvested into to other projects that make me more money. I have the soul freedom, which is peace in my soul to be able to deal with it. Then this doesn't mean I don't have challenges, right? It doesn't mean I don't have things to work
Sunshine
on
and
with my
rainbows.
family or myself. Yeah, it just means I can now win before I even play the game
Yeah.
because I don't have to worry about all that stuff. And it's like this. You said something earlier, like not giving attention to the family or whatever. I was at one of my daughter's soccer games a couple of weeks ago for a soccer tournament, and there's a guy there. I know he's in the mortgage business. So he's in real estate, but he's a mortgage house. It's a tournament game, and he was on his phone the entire time talking business. And I'm just like, dude, I'm so glad that's not me. I got to sit here and chillax, right? Like even like yesterday. Here's another deal. I made like 18 grand yesterday in 3 hours, and like the money just came in. There weren't even things that I was working on personally did not actually make me the money that I was
Yeah.
working on in that time. But what I mean by that is now I can work on things today that make me money in 30, 60 days that are big things, right? Like I got one thing that's called a just-in-time webinar. I don't know if you use any of this, but basically it's a webinar that plays every 15 minutes. We're working on creating that, putting the time and energy and the
Auto
effort, writing
webinars,
it and
right?
getting recorded, doing all that. Yeah, in a sense, it's an auto webinar, right? And now that's now starting to kick in where it's making me money, but I could work on that without making money because other things were making me money. If that makes sense. That's whereas most real estate agents, they don't have time to do that because they got to go turn the deal to pay the bills, to pay the
Mhm.
BMW payment, to pay the house payment, to pay
Yeah.
the Land Rover payment, to pay their trip to Mexico. Right? I don't
Yeah.
know what it is with realtors, and they love Mexico for some reason.
Now, look, I think it comes from understanding that being when you're stuck in that hamster wheel, for you to keep that wheel running, you have to constantly run, right? Like for a lot of real estate agents, they're just stuck in their prospecting cycles, right? They're just stuck in their transaction
Yep.
cycles, right? And they don't have the clarity you're talking about. What you're talking about is I have clarity to think. I have a focus on my vision and not just focus on what's happening in my business. Yes, you got to still be involved in
Correct.
focusing in your business, but as a real estate agent, when I was an individual producer or as a team leader, I didn't have time to think what's going to happen next week. I had to figure out like what's going to happen today because deals are just falling apart and you got to put out fires and all the stuff that we do. And obviously it's been 4 years for me, right? Taking that journey, and I know it's not easy, and we don't want to give that a vibe that hey, you just give up production and you just start making online, right? So could you share with us specific strategies that helped you transition from being a top producing agents to running a real estate academy? Like what do someone have
Yeah.
to master, be able to do that?
Yeah. I think there's 5 levels of mastery. And the first starts with a decision. This it's the decision to commit over convenience to what your vision is. And I truly believe that most people have a vision. Their biggest problem is they don't give attention to it, to awaken it within.
Mhm.
And so I tell first people the first level of mastery is master your vision. Like, what where are you going to be at 5 years down the road, 10 years
Yeah.
down the road? Tony does this really well in his UPW event with his called the Dickens process, where he has to choose two limiting beliefs, but then forward live that 10, 20
Yeah.
years down the road. And I want you to think about it. Like I was meeting with a Remax agent this week, and I could tell where those types of agents are stuck. She's a great person, and and she's going to make some changes in her business. I can tell because she's an action taker. But is she's been with Remax for 20 years, and so it's like she says, "Oh, I got to go train on Tuesday on some of the new stuff for NAR because I'm so far ahead of the agents in our office." I said, "That's interesting. How much is your brokerage paying you for that?" And they're not. I was like, so you're just volunteering your time to grow this broker's business? Like, you know what I'm saying? And where these newer models, whether it's EXP or Real or something like that, you can go train in their academies for free and be compensated for that through
Yeah.
the contribution programs, right? So the first though that I tell people is you got to master your vision. Where do you want to be 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the road? For example, I'm 40 right now. 10 years from now, I'll be 50. My kids will be in their early 20s, mid 20s, late teens. And as they start to get married, I want my place of residence to be the place that my kids and their spouses want to come and hang out. I don't want them going to the other people's houses, right?
Yeah.
So I want to make sure that I'm cultivating a life that my family wants to be a part of. Um, I want to live to 100 plus years old, full of vibrant energy, skiing 50 days a year, making incredible memories with my family. I want to cherish my spouse. I want to continue to do epic things. Like I'm going with Tony here in October to Abu Dhabi and India with our next plat trip. And so that's $100,000 a year. I want to be able to fund those things. And so as you get so clear on the vision, and here's what is required is, okay, well, what am I going to do to fund it? And there's two ways you can make money: actively or recurring residually.
Yeah.
And so it's like residual works like compound interest. And that means over time it expands if I focus on it. I might not make $100,000 a month next week by focusing on residual, but sure as shit I can in 36 months, right? Like I know because I'm proved. So you get then the vision of, well, I know I need that. And then you start to think of okay, well, where would I do this? And you start to see these models like, revenue share network, people selling. Like I got one of our agents, she makes $150,000 a month selling her courses and training and expertise to people, right? And then people start to think, holy shit, I can do that? That's possible, right? So that's the beginning of their journey. Then the second level of mastery, in my opinion, is attention mastery. What or who deserves my attention? And realtors don't ask that question enough, and they end up giving themselves attention, their attention to people and to things that do not drive towards their vision, especially recurring revenue.
Yeah.
And so there's a whole system that I teach to manage the psychological, emotional state, but really the outcomes that I get done on a daily basis and what I do versus don't do. And I'll be honest, for a lot of realtors, it's more about stop doing things you're currently doing, and you'll free up space to go do other things. And then the third level of mastery, in my opinion, is business freedom mastery. And I do it a little bit of a twist from Tony because he teaches 7. I teach 8 realms of business. And it's understanding these steps, but really there's 3 fundamentals in business: marketing, sales, and fulfillment. How do I generate massive amount of attention to my right fit client? How do I convert them into reoccurring money or high ticket money? And then how do I fulfill and deliver in such a way that they want to be a long-term person in my world and continue to make money with me?
Yeah.
So that's the third, is business freedom mastery. And then the fourth is money mastery. It's the easily skipped. And I think in a nutshell is there's two things to really talk about on this. One is your financial blueprint, how you think in your relationship and attachment to money. But number 2 is then it's the simplicity of managing cash flow. And it blows my mind how many realtors, they look at the P&L once a year at best. And I recommend
they don't even.
750. Yeah, if you're 750K or less, right. If you're 750K or less, minimum one time per month, 15, 30 minutes. And that's not saying you do the books, have someone do that, but you're in them, understanding them. And then the second, though, if you're over 750K a year, I recommend twice a month, 15, 20 minutes. Every 15 days, have that P&L updated, because really the P&L is a snapshot of time of what's going on financially in your business, and cash is oxygen and cash flow is oxygen flowing in. And so if you've got a leak, you're gonna be fucked. And if you're not noticing that leak, that'll be a problem. So that's the fourth. And I'll be honest, these first 4 levels of mastery are not what's the sexiest. It's not what agents want to hear. But the 5th level of mastery, where it is getting sexier and sexier, is what I call agent attraction mastery. And that's really, what are the 5 components of monetizing the new models of real estate, whether that's building a national real estate team where you got 100 agents on your team across the country, whether that's growing your revenue share network. That's been a big one for me. I'm coming up on 3,000 agents in my network, and it's a very lucrative position for me. And then the third is selling your expertise. You have an opportunity through social, through Go High Level, through all these different technologies, artificial intelligence, to create systems and processes to serve your community that serves you well. What I mean by that is real estate community. If you're in real estate and you've had any level of success, it's because of a community. It's not just because of you. And now you've got an opportunity to take your expertise, repackage that up, and bring that to the marketplace to serve the community even more into the next 10, 20 year cycle of this industry, which which would be very, very interesting. It'll be fun, but it'll be very interesting.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. You just broke down the whole thing. Now, could you talk to us about like different revenue streams that you have developed as you pivoted away from the day-to-day sales operations?
Yeah, so I've obviously got my training academy, which is where I sell my expertise, and I take people through the right fit journey on that. The other is my revenue share. I've talked about that. That's comp plan with newer models. I have mine partnership I've decided with Real Brokerage. I absolutely love it. I fit with the culture well. I think the leadership is on fire right now. I think they've got a lot of wind in their sails. Also, though, through that whole system is stock purchase plan, because they still generate real estate leads and deals, and so they run through the system. I get paid off of that, stock awards, stuff like that. Brand deals are really big for me. So, like, because my audience is so solid, I have people constantly reaching out to me, and I vet these out. I don't love affiliate deals as much. I know that those can be very lucrative. It's not the model I choose. I like to do brand deals where people are paying me a guaranteed amount. So brand deals, collaboration deals are huge. I collaborate with a lot of people on projects where we're tapping into other people's audiences and mine and vice versa. Then really the other thing though is investing for me. So I always focus on generating and taking profit from my business model. So my business is okay, create residual streams and then move money from there into investment portfolio. And I've got about 7 different asset classes right now between Bitcoin, stocks, real estate, cash value, precious metals, private equity deals. And so then I'm then reinvesting and managing that portfolio. I mean, that really my part-time business is investing and managing my portfolio and creating more increased revenue streams. And because there's a critical mass that once you hit, I mean, you can suck, but still follow the basics and still make way more than you need individually.
Wow, that's a lot of streams, bro.
Yeah, I feel very, very blessed. I probably have nine revenue streams right now.
That's amazing.
Currently. But and I'll tell you the mistake I made was trying to get to 9 overnight. I focused on one really great one that I could automate and step out of and then move to the next one.
That's amazing. Now, what qualities would you say? Is there certain categories of agents that could do this, right? Like what qualities would you say that would qualify someone to be able to do that, to be able to step away from production? Like, is this for everyone or is this fit for a certain type of agents or team leaders or brokers?
I wouldn't say that if you're not making at least 150 to 200 grand a year in production, I would say don't focus on this yet. And the reason why is you gotta understand the business yourself. You gotta understand the in-depth of how do I really get better at my listing presentation? How do I get better at my buyer presentation? How do I get better at harnessing my sphere of, like the fundamentals? You need to be really great at operating. So I think there's 4 levels of business. Number 1 is where you're an employee, you work for someone else. Number 2 is where you're an unsuccessful business operator, where you're trying to operate a business, you're not very great at it. And that's where a lot of agents are at 150 and below. And then there's the 3rd level, which is a successful business operator, where this is now you're starting to get into that 250, 400, 500,000, even up to $1 million range. You can be a successful operator. And then the final thing after that is what's called a successful business owner. And everyone wants to go from employee to owner, but in between you have to learn the skills. And part of that is going through it being unsuccessful at sucking, at saying the wrong thing on the call, at messing up the file. And so I really recommend, unless you're around that 150 to 200K mark, I would really just focus on becoming a really, really great operator first, then start to become a really good owner.
Yeah, that's amazing advice. So, like, I guess, like, let's talk about technology, and we're running out of time here. I could talk about this stuff with you forever. So it feels like. Now, how has technology made a big role in all of this, and how have you integrated technology into your business operations to facilitate that growth and manage that workload more effectively?
Yeah, so I think if you look at where the future of this industry is going, you got to look at where it's come from. And I've been blessed to be in this nearly 50, or sorry, 20 years now. I don't know, 50,
Mm.
20 years now. And I started with fax machines. I remember in 2011, 12, I'd heard about scanning documents. So I started scanning documents. I remember 2012, I'd had an assistant and a junior agent working for me. And my
Yeah.
junior agent started saving all of our files on this thing called Dropbox. And I was so upset. I was like, dude, you got to save it on the office computer where we know where it's at. And I didn't understand the cloud at all, right? Such a goof. And now it's like, okay, well, look at where it's at now. Everything, I can control my entire business right here on my iPhone, everything, right? And so you look at the biggest revolution was number one was communication. How we communicate and influence people is through voice note, through text message, through video, through social media, right? Like it's huge opportunity that's completely changed. And it's not like more and more agents are now like, oh shit, I got to do this, right? Like even if they don't want to do it, and that's you can see who's good at it and who's not. But then I think the other thing has really been shifting is how I leverage through systems like Go High Level, um, click funnels, just different ways, automated, like where video integrates and building in systems that things are working without me.
Yeah.
And then the third, really, there's about four different personally that I'm personally using on a daily basis, four pieces of artificial intelligence. And really, artificial intelligence, if you look at the future, and I believe it's technology and humanity, I don't think it's either or, I think it's both, is can I utilize artificial intelligence to be more effective and efficient? And so I utilize those. Like number one, I use every day's ChatGPT. I have that thing on voice note, like just having conversations with it.
This interview is
Number
controlled
two,
by the whole ChatGPT thing. It's telling me what all the questions to ask based on your background.
oh, nice, sweet, yes. So I use Tony Robbins AI, which is basically Tony in my pocket all day long. When I'm stuck in something, I can just ask questions and he can pop out some feedback or some questions or really put a quick RPM together for me. And then I can, let me go act on that, right? The other is I use a lot is Zoom Notes AI.
Yeah.
And I can just pop that on and I can just send the transcript over of the recap to the people I've met with. And they're like, oh, sweet. Thanks for reminding me real quick. And then the fourth I use a lot is Leo. Leo is built-in AI with Real Brokerage on side of their app is to really just navigate all of my business and partnership with them. So I think it's artificial intelligence has made me extremely effective and efficient. But it's learning how to utilize that and where to utilize that.
Yeah. I think with agents, a lot of times with technology, what happens is they just get amazed by the shiny object and they just never figure out how to be able to adapt that into their business, how to be able to implement into their business. Now, some of the stuff, and I'd love to talk to you about like getting you an AI bot to convert all your leads into appointments for high ticket sales. We have built on High Level. I'll love to show you that. Agents create content all the time, and you can use Opus Clip to create short form content and become omnipresent through all the channels. So like that's something that we're leveraging. It's amazing, right? Like what technology is doing today. I think one thing though agents have to really understand is that we have to get out of the one-to-one client acquisition, right, to one-to-many client acquisition mindset, right? One-to-one client acquisition is just direct outreach, the traditional methodology, right? Cold calls and door knocks and prospecting one-to-one. And one-to-many is when you have sales funnels built in your marketing campaigns where people, 1,000 people at one time are watching your videos and booking appointment for you, right? Or on your calendar, right? So that mindset shift allows you to start looking at technology and be able to leverage AI, be able to leverage all the tools that are available at our disposal. Okay, let's go for another question. Is that sure, you teach how to launch your digital product, and of course you probably teach the business mastery side of all those things. Would you say like agents have to teach other agents, or can they open that up to any other expertise they have?
Great question. You can open it up to any expertise that you have. I would recommend you stay in your riches of the niches.
Yeah.
So like I could go teach this same exact thing to other business owners and entrepreneurs, but the thing I don't have there is 20 years of what I don't know that I know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the other thing is I don't have 20 years of relationships in like I do in real estate. So you got to look, and I'm not saying don't go do something else. You have to understand is, okay, well, where's the compound interest of where your life has been the last 10 years, 5 years, 15 years?
Leverage
if it's been real estate, right, leverage that is the most important piece. Like I see so many agents that are like, well, I really want to get into teaching fitness. And that's great if you have a fitness following and group, right? Like, and if you've been doing it, right, just because you were interested in fitness and good at fitness doesn't mean you know how to train fitness.
Yeah. You don't have any expertise.
Like it's right. So it's really extracting what your expertise is. I recommend to agents that want to do this is focus on real estate agents first because you understand it better than you think. You understand it.
So what is your advice to someone who's looking to, I guess that is your audience, speak to your audience. What is your advice to someone that wants to pivot out of production and get into leveraging their expertise to monetize their expertise and create a stream for them?
So I recommend power is in proximity, and there's a whole way on how that works. In the first level, so you got to decide to get into proximity with the right people that can help you. And so you have to ask yourself, do these people or person to have the physical results that I want to see in my life, in my business? Second is coachability index. I got to be level 10, willing to be coached, willing to change, and willing to learn. Not level 8, not level 5. Third thing is I got to have a high level believability index. Focus way less on the how and way more on what's important about it, because the how is the enemy of execution. It's the confusion. It's where lack of clarity is a breeding ground of anxiety. Whereas you can focus on what's important about it. It creates clarity. You get creative. You can decide the next 2 or 3 steps. And then the fourth is the consciousness cycle, really focusing on the fundamentals of understanding first you're unconsciously incompetent, then you're unconsciously so you're then unconsciously competent. You realize you don't know what you don't know, and then you're consciously competent, which is you're learning to know what you don't know, and then you become unconsciously competent, where it becomes automated, and that cycle repeats over and over again. And so you can focus on that. That's what I would recommend. But the first is get into proximity with the people that have the physical results that you're after. Pay for it. It's the fastest way for paid proximity to get what you're after.
Love it, bro. You're just like walking, talking Tony Robbins, man. Like it's like translation is whatever Tony teaches us. Now, like, what's your long-term vision for your real estate academy and network, and how do you plan to continue growing? Where is this boat going, bro?
Yes. So, right now, my long-term, and I do need to wrap this up because I got a meeting, but my long-term is to get, I want to get 10,000 agents in my network with Real. I really want to see Real thrive over the next decade. I'm excited about that. The future of my business is I've evolved out of in-person events. I built a studio, really focused on virtual events. So I'm really pumped about that. Got one coming up October 1st through 3rd. WHR Live. It's 3-day. In fact, I'm going over all 3 days. Those 5 levels of mastery is what I'm going to be training on. And that would be my biggest focus, is to grow that part of my business, to continue to influence people. And then from there, I want to then start to invest in more companies, expand my private equity portfolio.
Amazing, man. Looking forward to it. There you guys have it, guys. If you guys have any questions or you have any interest in what Colton has to offer, you will find him anywhere. It wasn't very hard to find. He's everywhere, and everything he's doing is just like all across all channels. I checked out your YouTube channel, checked out your Instagram. It's amazing work you're doing. Again, stick around, Colton, for those of you who stuck around and watched this video or listen to our episode later. Thank you for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one.